Welcome, everybody. This is going to be the June 1st waivers report. So May was quite an interesting month. And I had said that May would really be the month where the acceleration started really taking off, right? Basically, January through April, as I've been saying, was a really big kind of integration period. We were integrating so many things. Pluto had officially gone into Aquarius November of last year. I had talked about the timeline merges that had happened, the Christ spiral and the death spiral separating. We had the North Node enter Pisces, which was a big adjustment. And we had a huge stellium in Pisces for what felt like ever. And again, Pisces is one of those energies and signs where it's not so much about doing. It's not so much about forward movement and getting things done. It's a lot about sitting with things. It's a lot about unraveling things and feeling into things and just kind of more of a receiving, right? And a being open to what is unfolding rather than really trying to figure anything out. And so once we hit May, it was our first month, or no, sorry. We had Neptune go into Aries, right? At the end of March. So throughout April, we did have Neptune in Aries, but it was hard to integrate that energy at the time because again, we still had a lot of planets in Pisces. We had retrogrades going on. And it really wasn't until May where the energy started really kicking off. And so in my last update, I had talked about what it meant with having Saturn also join Neptune in Aries, which Saturn moved into Aries on May 25th. So we have Saturn and Neptune conjunct in Aries. And I had shared, I don't know if I shared it in the video, but I had been posting, some other astrologers' interpretations of this, which I really loved. I had shared Cobra's article talking about the last time Saturn was in Aries, which was 1996, the Great Forgetting. Neptune last being in Aries in the 1800s. There's so much significance to all of this, but one of the interpretations of Saturn and Neptune being at the early degrees of Aries together from another astrologer, Astro Butterfly. She's really great. And, her interpretation of this I really liked. And it was that basically, when we shift from Pisces to Aries, like I've said, this is not just the changing of signs. This is the beginning of a new cycle, of a new era. And we have a lot of that energy going on. There's so much of like new eras happening, especially with Pluto and Aquarius, right? And one of the things that she said was that when we get to the sign of Aries, it's no longer about basically trying to tweak what exists, right? It's not about trying to fix what exists, tweak it, rebrand it. It's basically a wiping clean of the entire slate and starting again. And she likened it to a reset. And I know, we talk about resets a lot and that the dark has reset us many times. And in this regard, we're really talking about a consciousness reset in a divine way. We're kind of wiping the slate clean of these past timelines that were still very much at play in the present moment of now, right? Timelines that really were just entangled with the now and systems and structures and things like that, where it's like, there is no fixing it, right? And in many ways, that's a scary thought. But I think it's also an exciting thought when we bring this into our individual lives of it's not about just making these little changes. It's not just about making some adjustments. It's kind of saying, if I were to wipe the slate entirely clean right now, and I just wanted to start completely fresh, completely new, I think that that's exciting because it's a blank canvas. And that's kind of where we're at right now. And she also kind of used the words, the second Big Bang, which is funny because we've always talked about that, of entering the new spiral of creation, right? The third cycle of creation, because we've had 2 cycles. One was all light, one was dark. Now it's basically a third cycle, which is a totally new spiral of creation. And it's a completely blank slate. So throughout May, we had Saturn sitting at that 29th degree of Pisces for most of the month. And Saturn is karmic, and his job is for us to master the shit that we haven't mastered and to really get on with it and to clean it up, take responsibility for it, take accountability, and move forward, right? And so in that 29th degree of Pisces being the world axis, right? It's encompassing so much, and Pisces is so multidimensional. So I felt like throughout May, there was so much that was clearing energetically, spiritually, physically, emotionally. And a lot of the timelines I picked up that were really getting cleared through May was the Atlantis timeline. That one was coming through very strongly because we're seeing now kind of one of the falls of Atlantis was that they started prioritizing knowledge over true intuition and true spirituality, right? Which is an internal thing. It's an internal knowing. It's an internal trust. It's a feeling. And they started externalizing this into this constant seeking of knowledge and using knowledge as power, right? Like gatekeeping knowledge. That's when hierarchy started to become a thing. They started to place spirituality and spiritual connection into a hierarchy, right? And they developed like the priesthoods and all these things. And you had to go through these figures and these hierarchical systems in order to connect with source, right? A lot of that is what happened in Atlantis. They started misusing technology that they weren't an energetic match to. So basically the crux of Atlantis was they were doing things and they were externalizing source into things like gold, knowledge, hierarchy, and status. And ultimately they weren't embodying they weren't embodying source. They were externalizing it. And that was ultimately part of the fall. And we're kind of reaching that crux again, where we either continue down this path of externally seeking knowledge and externally seeking answers. Savior programming and victim consciousness was coming up really heavily in May. Again, that's a very Saturn and Pisces thing. Seeking a savior, right? Seeking someone or something outside of yourself to help you, to save you. Victim consciousness, super heavy, which is when you basically blame outside of yourself. You're unable to take accountability for your own embodiment. You're unable to see how you are co-creating in your experience. A lot of that was clearing. There was a lot of the Egyptian timeline that I picked up as well, clearing. And, similar things happened in that timeline as well. There was a lot of hierarchy kind of turned into this idea of royalty and who was special and who was not. There was kind of a lot of, again, misuse of power, misuse of what we call magic, which is simply intention and embodiment, right? And understanding that we have an effect on reality. A lot of misuse of that. And also like the Jesus timeline, a lot of that was getting cleared throughout May. The persecution energy, the crucifixion energy, the savior energy. A lot of this was like, that's what I was picking up a lot of. And now that Saturn is officially in Aries and we're starting out the month of June with a really strong fire and air stellium. Okay, so we have Saturn, Neptune, Venus, and Chiron all in Aries. So huge emphasis on Aries this whole year and in years to come. And we also have the Sun and Mercury and Jupiter in Gemini, which is air. We have Pluto in Aquarius, which is air. We also have Mars in Leo, which is fire. So we're in a really dominant like fire and air energy beginning out this month. And it's what I call the whirlwind energy. Because fire and air, right? And I love how astrology and just understanding energetics, you can really see how this plays out on a physical level. I think we can all feel it. We're in this type of whirlwind and everything seems to be happening really quickly now. And again, I've spoken about this all year. I said May, June, July, and August are going to be, your life is going to look so different by the end of August. Things are happening fast. They're happening quickly. And in a way, I think this is helping us to really get moving into the new paradigm energies. The transition is speeding up. I spoke about the updates, or I think I did, but I've been posting about the updates of the WESAC convention, the Divine Plan Conference that happened between May 16th and like May 21st, May 12th to May 21st. And a lot of what was discussed in that, it was an etheric conference basically to discuss the divine plan. And 2025 to 2027 is the transition. That's been established. And there was a lot of discussion about what this specific timeline window between May and September was going to be, because these are pivotal months. These are months where all of the outer planets are going to be in their new signs. And then in the fall and towards the end of the year, we get a lot of backtrack with these outer planets back into the 29th degrees of their previous signs. So that's a whole nother topic. The 29th degrees have a lot of pressure to them. There's a lot of catalysts that tend to occur at the 29th degrees. So the fall and winter time will be quite interesting. Just us kind of going back to some things. Again, there's going to be pressure on kind of wiping the slate clean on these previous cycles. And then by early 2026, all these planets are moving back into their new signs. And so 2026, the entire year, is basically this very fresh start kind of energy. It's also a universal 1 year. So we're really setting ourselves up for the next 2 years to be a really bold movement towards the transition. But these next 4 months is when we have all these planets in their new signs. So we're getting the first inkling. We're getting the first peek behind the veil of this new, fresh energy, this blank canvas. And so what the cosmos are going to be pushing us, what Source is asking us during these next 4 months, and we're going to start feeling this a lot in June, is what do you want to do with this? What do you want to do with this? What direction do you want to go? What role do you want to play? What do you want to create? Right? And, so there's been a lot of discussions. We can see how the whirlwind energy is manifesting in weather. I talked a lot about how Neptune and Aries was going to create weather anomalies. Uranus at the 29th degree of Taurus. There's a lot of tornadoes happening. There is just wild stuff happening. High earthquake activity, high solar activity. Mainstream media is starting to talk more and more about solar energy and how it's going to affect our grids and all the things that we know are going to happen, right? Because we're transitioning to a new world. Like, this isn't going to be, always easy peasy or rainbows and butterflies. There's going to be some challenges to this. And we're seeing that through weather. We're seeing that through rapid fire change globally, but also in our personal experience, right? And so we start off the month of June, and I just want to first briefly talk about Saturn in Aries, because I talked a lot about what I feel Neptune in Aries is going to bring, and I want to talk about Saturn now. Saturn in Aries is about embodiment. It's just that simple. It's about walking the talk. Saturn in Pisces, and I think when Neptune was in Pisces for 14 years, there was this idea, this culture that developed, especially in the spiritual community, which was like, that you could kind of pretend to be spiritual, or you could talk about spiritual things and you can use spiritual lingo. And this is why people, I think, got a bad taste of what they call New Age spirituality, which again, none of it's New Age. This is all ancient, but it was just kind of this thing where, it's all love and light and blah, blah, blah. And it was a performance of spirituality. It was a performance of what it means to be a God self. And Saturn in Aries is a totally different energy where he's basically like, you better walk the talk. You better actually be and embody what you're telling other people, for one. And number two, if you have the awareness and you have the knowledge about certain things, right? And you're not practically applying that to your life, and you're not being the God self, you're not being the example of it, that's where we're going to meet karmic challenges. And so we're going to see a new kind of wave, right? Where we're all going to be really pressed into the embodiment of the God self. It is no longer about having information. It's no longer about knowing knowledge. It's no longer about pretending or performing in some way of what you think a spiritual or godlike being is. It's about being it. It's about doing it. And we're definitely going to be urged and guided to start taking action on our instincts. There's going to just be this feeling of like, we're tired of waiting around. We're tired of being victims. We're tired of blaming our outward circumstances or other people or whatever it is for why we're not being who we want to be, living our purpose, and doing what we know we came here to do. So there's going to be this kind of collective frustration with like, I'm not waiting around anymore. Life is too short, right? I'm going to start living my purpose and doing what I'm called to do. And so you're going to see a lot more people starting to kind of take those leaps of faith, right? And because Aries is a very bold sign, a lot of us are also going to be called and somewhat pushed, right, into taking leaps of faith where basically it's like being afraid and doing it anyways. Like not having all the pieces to the puzzle. Again, North Node Pisces. Not knowing, just embracing the not knowing of shit. Like you don't know how it's going to turn out. You can't plan for it. You don't have all the details. You might fail. It might not work out, right? Like you're going to have all of those feelings and you're going to have to do it anyway. And I think we're going to be pleasantly surprised. The fact that boldness and leaps of faith are really going to be what is blessed, right? And what we get the benefit of it. And at the same time, Saturn in Aries is also going to tell us, like, you know what? There's also going to be a lot of times where, again, Aries is about sovereignty. It's about not waiting around for others, not being a victim and not saying, well, blaming outside circumstances. It's about just saying, you know what? I have the empowerment to just do it. I'm not going to wait around for others. I'm not going to cry about it. I'm just going to do it. Right. And so there's also going to be this empowerment in whatever we set out to do, we can do it, but we just have to take accountability and take responsibility for ourselves and stop trying to rely on everyone and everything outside of us. So there's going to be kind of this big, bold movement within humanity, I think, of interdependence. right? And sovereignty. And the other thing that I was going to briefly speak about with Saturn and Aries and Neptune and Aries, actually, even more so Neptune and Aries, is that part of being the God self is about co-creating your reality. And I say co-creating because I know there's a lot of rhetoric out there where people say you create your own reality. And yes, that is true to a certain extent. We always have to take accountability and responsibility for whatever our experience is, whatever we're manifesting in our lives, whatever our experiences are, in whatever way we have either consciously or unconsciously created that experience, right? But I don't like the rhetoric of that you alone through self-will create your own reality, because it completely, once again, that was the fall of creation. That was the whole second cycle of creation where, certain high-ranking souls decided they were the creators of their own reality. They no longer were part of unity consciousness. They were no longer part of the whole, and that they were going to do whatever they wanted to do, that they had the power to do whatever they wanted to do. And so I think that, and then on the flip side, right, it's also not that you're just a victim of the universe and you have no control over anything at all. I think those are two sides of the same coin, right? Being a co-creator of reality means that your higher self, is co-creating with source. And that's a very important distinction, I feel, because how I see it is that often source, the universe, spirit, right, is going to call on you to do certain things as part of your service to the whole, as part of your service to the greater good, as part of, sometimes we're called to do certain things and we're like, I don't really want to do that. But it's for the greater good. You are helping the overall divine plan, the overall ascension, right? And then there's going to be moments where you decide, this is actually what I want to do. And then source says, okay, I will totally back you in that. It's a relationship. It's a co-creation. It's not I do whatever I want to do all the time and I create everything as I want to. And it's also not, I just do whatever spirit says. Both those sides of the coin are, in essence, in duality. And so co-creation has to be a relationship. It has to be both, what do I want? What does my soul want? And what do I want to experience? And what do I want to create? As well as, what is my greatest service? How can I assist? Asking your angels, asking source, how can I be of greater service? How can my role serve the highest good? As well as how can I be fulfilled and do what it is that I personally and individually called to do? So that, I think, is going to be the little bit of the change in how we move forward. But as we move into June, I was like trying, as I always do, I tried to give a name or a title to the months in terms of like what the energies are going to be. And like for June, nothing was really coming through except like the word vibes. It was like, okay, vibes. And I'm like, okay, cool. And I think what they were trying to get across was, for one, again, this is the co-creation aspect, right? Is we're here to co-create the vibe. What do we want to feel? What do we want to experience? And also realizing that we are going to have a little bit of this thing this month where it's about not letting the outside world and the external affect you, right? This is very Aries. Aries really stands in their own energy and they stand on their own 2 feet. And they don't let a lot of interference in. They don't listen to other people's opinions. They often don't follow paths that other people are taking. They have really strong boundaries in many ways, whereas Pisces, right, was the total opposite. It was like it lets everything in. It kind of is a chameleon to whatever's going on around them. And so that's the change. And so vibes, okay? What do we want the vibe to be? And also the word that was coming to me was beauty. And I thought that was interesting of like, it's a month to, well, first of all, it's a 6 universal month. So June tends to be really good. May is always wild because it's a 5. There's a lot of change. There's catalyst. Things are either going really well or they're falling apart or they're doing both. The 6 is a very balanced energy. It's a lot about just peace, harmony, flow, enjoyment. The 6 is also very communal, right? It's very about connecting with others. And, I'm just thinking, this is where we get the vibes, right? Of like June. It's usually when summer begins. It's get-togethers, it's gatherings, it's barbecues. It's a vibe. We're not in the peak of the summer yet, so typically it's not as super hot yet. There's a flow. I think of the ocean, I think of a beach, and so beauty was also the other word that came through about creating as much beauty in your life as possible. And beauty can mean different things to different people. Creating beauty in your life can be the beautiful connections that you have with other people. I think about it as creating beautiful moments, right? Like it's hard. This has been a hard journey. And I know for many of you, like sometimes, a lot of us, we've been having breakthroughs to where we finally feel like things are moving forward. We finally feel like things are like aligning for us and working out. And that can be really exciting. And on the other hand, a lot of us are still hitting those points where it's like we're frustrated, we're irritated, like of just the state of the world, of what's going on. Like it's kind of a little bit of both. And I think, there's so much of the collective consciousness that has just given up. Like they're just checked out. They're so tired. They don't feel like there's anything that they can do. And that's where, again, first wavers have the role of inspiring others. It does get better. It does get better. But we have to do something. We have to create, again, we have to co-create the life and the world that we want to live in. It's not going to fall from the sky. And in many ways, I think we have to motivate the other waves of empowering them that every person matters. Every person who chooses higher consciousness, every person who chooses love over fear matters. It all matters. Every person's passion and what they feel they're here to contribute to the world, it all matters. And I think June is also giving me this, again, vibes. It's also giving me this vibe of just family, that like if humanity can remember that we are all a family, and if we can start really translating that into the real world of like we're, because when we say we're all one, that is true, but it's a very theoretical thing, right? It's like, yes, we're all one, but it's hard to fathom that. It's hard to feel what that means on a practical level, right? So I feel, and that's kind of where, for a long time I've tried to like distill these very like spiritual theories and phrases down to really the practicality of it, because we're in a human experience. Yes, we're very advanced spiritual beings, but we're also in these human bodies. And I think the idea that we're all actually a family makes much more sense. It gives us that feeling of like, yes, we're all very different. We've all got our own path and purpose and walks of life, but at the end of the day, we are all a family. And if we can remember that, we can really make the best of these 4 months. And so the other thing that I love about June is that we will have a very balanced elemental month. So we start off the month hot and wild with the air and fire stellium, okay? But then when we get to the 6-6 portal, which is one of my favorite portals of the year, I love June. I don't know if it's just because, I don't know. We all have our months, right? And it depends on your birth chart. And there will tend to be certain months and certain seasons where it's a little bit rougher for, depending on how your chart is set up. But June has always been one of my favorite months. And the 6-6 portal is just like, again, the 6 energy. It's about balance. It's about harmony, peace, enjoyment, gatherings, family, friends. Like, it's one of my favorite portals of the year. And so on that day, Venus is going to shift out of Aries and move into Taurus. Like I said, we have a fire and air stellium. The only planet that has been in an earth sign and which has been Uranus, is not really giving us groundedness, right? Because the earth element really helps us ground. It helps us slow down a little bit. Just focus on the now, get practical. It's a nice being type of energy. And we've had Uranus in Taurus, who is the disruptor. So, our grounded foundations have not really felt so grounding. And this entire month, Uranus is going to be at the critical degrees of Taurus. So he's at about 28 degrees now. He will hit the 29th degree maybe halfway in to June, and then he's going to be at the 29th degree. So I'm really thankful that we're going to have Venus in Taurus. Venus is the ruler of Taurus. She also rules Libra, but she loves being in Taurus. And on the 6-6 portal, just beautiful vibes, beautiful vibes. This is going to really help ground it all in. This is going to give us a moment of feeling like, okay, I can just breathe for a second. First of all, Venus in Taurus is really great for manifestation. And when I say manifestation, again, I'm not a woo-woo manifester. Like, it's just not my style. It's not my thing. What I mean by manifesting is when we put an intention out, again, co-creation. When we tell Source and our angels and our higher self, like, hey, this is what I'd really love to experience. This is what I would really love to manifest into my life, because it's going to make my life so much richer. It's going to help me in my service. It's going to benefit me so much. And then when we let it go, right? We stop trying to force it. We stop trying to control it. And then it just comes, and it comes always at the divine timing. And if it doesn't come, then we always need to look at where we're having a little bit of a block to receiving. Okay. So Venus is the love language. She's the manifester. She's the giver. She's the lover. And because she rules 2 signs, in Libra, she's the giver. Venus in Libra is the ultimate lover and giver. They love to give to others. Very romantic, very just loving of other people. Venus in Taurus is all about how we receive. And a lot of us think that we're ready to receive things. And the reason we sometimes don't receive them in the way we want them or in the timing that we want them is because our energy system can't receive it, right? And so this is actually why I chose this date, the 6-6 portal, to host our light body seminar for the month. I got this really strong download about this light body seminar because last month we activated the new operating system. I talked all about that, how the new operating system is changing over from the ego operating system. So it's a lot about our perspectives, right? How are we thinking about things? Are we in higher thought? Are we in lower thought? Things like attachment, resistance, expectations. Those are all part of the old operating system, which, and all the ego programmings, obviously. And so we talked all about kind of the changeover of that system. And I believe that this will manifest physically with a changing over of our operating systems in real life, whether that be the electrical grids, whether that be the internet grids. There's going to be some sort of manifestation of a switching of operating systems, right? Because and the old operating system could only exist in the past and future. It can only calculate based on past outcomes or predictions of future outcomes. The new operating system is in the now, where all things exist, where all things are possible. It's kind of the quantum field, if you will. And so one of the things that the galactics were talking about for this month in integrating this new operating system, and this is all in preparation for the switching over of the grids, which, again, I'm speaking energetically, but it could play out physically. That will happen on 7/7, which is when Uranus enters Gemini, and he's the final outer planet to shift signs. And of course, Gemini, again, energetically, has a big role in the new operating system. It's about being able to access all information at any time. It's about limitless thought, right? And so we've been working up to this point because, as I've also been sharing, that Mother Earth's baseline would be moving up every month leading up to the 7/7, when this official operating system changeover was going to happen. That's what I kept getting that date very clearly, that we'd move to the quantum operating system. I kept getting event energy, and so Mother Earth's baseline is set to hit 200 on the 7/7. Again, switching over operating systems, which means everything under 200 is a life-draining frequency. That's where the ego lives. So essentially, it's the eradication of that lower operating system, where the ego must start going through an ego death. And so this month, we will be moving through the frequencies between about 185 and 195 throughout the month of June. And then, of course, that first week of July, we will jump from 195 to 200. So this month, some of the frequencies that will be purged are going to be things like denial, arrogance, and attachment. So that is why on the 6/6 portal, the Light Body Seminar is going to be focused on ways that those frequencies block receiving. So this was interesting when they started to show me what it would mean for us to integrate this new operating system. And they immediately showed me two things. One was that it had everything to do with the nervous system. So we are basically rewiring the nervous system out of the fight or flight energy, which is about resistance. Okay. Fight or flight is always about resistance and force, which actually blocks receiving because it pushes naturally. And we want to rewire that and reverse that into being open to receive. And it's perfect with that Venus and Taurus because she teaches us how to receive, so that those manifestations, that natural abundance that we know we carry, our natural co-creative abilities to manifest and to create, can now actually come in, because we can actually receive them without our nervous system panicking and going into resistance or going into force. Okay. The other thing was the gut-brain axis, as that is kind of part of the nervous system. And so specifically how that flows, and again, I've been talking about the solar plexus being a very important chakra that's been going under a kind of transmutation for the last month or two. Because again, the solar plexus is our empowerment, our self-worth. It's in many ways a big part of how we manifest into the world as well, and how that connects to our brain, right? Through the new operating system. So we're going to be going through a lot of things in that seminar about the gut-brain axis, about the nervous system, and the Galactics have given me a 30-day protocol that we'll all be going through, that will basically take us from the 6/6 to 7/6 the day before the operating systems switch. So it'll be a 30-day protocol that we'll all go through, of basically changing our nervous systems. And it's going to be into a more feminine nervous system. And I think this is going to be really key for us receiving everything that we've been working for, everything that we've been, working towards and manifesting and, moving towards. And so if you would like to join us for that seminar, that's going to be on 6/6. Then, so we now have a little bit of stabilizing earth energy. Now, on June 8th, we're going to have Mercury shift out of Gemini and into Cancer, which is a water energy. So now we've got a nice little balance. We've got our stellium and fire still. We've got a little bit of stabilizing earth energy, and now we have some water energy. I like this. I vibes. It's always nice when you have a balance of the elements, which is just so perfect for this month of the 6, right? It's total balance. So Mercury in Cancer, again, this is gonna ease us into a little bit more softness, our communication, a little bit more heart-centered, open. We're going to be communicating how we feel a little bit better. That's why emotional regulation and the nervous system regulation is going to be so important. Mercury in Cancer, I think, is going to open people up and start to be more loving, right? Because the air and fire can get really, it's whirlwindy. It can get a little bit out of control. There can be conflicts. There can be a lot of fighting. There can be a lot of outbursts. Yelling, explosions, right? Think of a tornado. That's basically fire and air together in a way. It's like that. This is going to ease us in a little bit. And then the next day we have Jupiter, who has been transiting in Gemini since last June. She's going to enter Cancer. So all of a sudden we have water energy coming in. And as you guys know, I've said it all the time, I've had a hard time with the Cancer energy. Like every season of Cancer has been a little bit tough for me. I don't know. I've always struggled with it. I think because I have so many planets in Capricorn, which is its opposite sign. I struggle with it. But I have come to kind of heal my wounds with Cancer. Ironically, I have Chiron in Cancer. And really embrace the beauty of what Cancer is, right? And so Jupiter actually does extremely well in Cancer. Okay, Jupiter actually doesn't like being in Gemini so much because Jupiter loves expansion. Jupiter loves growth. It loves experience. And in Gemini, it's all mental. So there's only so far you can take that, right? You can expand mentally maybe by learning new things, meeting new people, talking about new topics, but you can only take the mental realm so far before, you're just in the mind and you're just stuck. So there's only so far you can take it, right? But Jupiter in Cancer, remember, Cancer is a cardinal sign. And cardinal signs are about taking the lead. Now, here's where we get a little bit of friction because of the Saturn-Neptune conjunction in Aries. Aries is also a cardinal sign. So we're going to start having a Jupiter square to Saturn and Neptune because they're both cardinal signs. They both want to lead. Cancer wants to lead their home. They want to lead with the heart. They want to lead. They're actually very good at business as well. They want to lead in their community. Any realm in which their compassion and their care for others can be utilized, that's where they shine. And so they want to lead in that way. And then Aries wants to lead of this is what I want to do. This is my purpose. This is my goal, and this is what I'm doing. So there's going to be a little friction there where we have to be careful, right? This balance between follow your path, live your purpose, do what you're guided to do, but don't forget to care about others in the process. Don't forget to lead with the heart and not with force and not with the mind. But overall, Jupiter in Cancer, vibes. I think, again, family vibes. People are going to start really appreciating other people coming together, etc. Now, the 11th, we have a full moon in Sagittarius. Doesn't get more fun than that, right? Vibes. We love a full moon in Sagittarius. Now, the second half of June, little bit of different energy again. We've got Mars, who will finally shift out of Leo and move into Virgo on June 17th. More Earth energy. I love a Mars in Virgo energy. This is where we've spent the first half of the month vibing. Okay. We're vibing. There might be some emotional tensions, like I said, but if we can stay in the heart, it's going to be all good. But it's vibes, just all the way around. Now, when we hit Mars and Virgo out of Mars and Leo loves a good time. They love to perform. They love to express themselves. They love to really focus on what makes them happy, right? And what makes them feel good. Mars and Virgo is like, what do I need to get done? Okay, what are the things that I've been putting off that I need to start moving on now? So after we've been vibing for 2 weeks, we might feel a little shift where, okay, suddenly, right, things are happening, everything's moving super fast, and we needed a minute to integrate that, but now we can get back to what we were doing. That's a great time for cleaning out your house, decluttering, getting a little to-do list together. Okay, taking care of your body, taking care of your health and wellness. Remember, this is a very balanced month. We want to take care of ourselves and just be like, what are the things I can start to get moving on? So this is going to be a very good energy for just getting ourselves together a little bit. And then on the 21st, we have the summer solstice. This is when we enter Cancer season. Okay. So now we will have a fire stellium, an air stellium, an earth stellium, and a water stellium under the summer solstice. Perfect symmetry, okay? Because we're going to have the sun in Cancer, Mercury in Cancer, Jupiter in Cancer, all water. We're still going to have Saturn, Neptune, Chiron, and Aries, fire stellium. We're going to have Pluto in Aquarius. I guess we'll be a little low on air that time. Well, we'll have Pluto in Aquarius. So we won't have an air stellium by that time, but that's enough air for all of us, actually, Pluto in Aquarius. And we will have an earth stellium because we will have Venus, Uranus in Taurus, and Mars in Virgo. So this will be a nice vibe on the summer solstice. This is also the time of year where there's the most light, right? So it's a time of celebration. It's going to be a very nice energy around this time. Then on the 25th of June, we have a new moon in Cancer. So again, a lot of Cancer energy, a lot of Aries energy, and Gemini energy. And again, a lot of setting the stage for, I believe, humanity coming together as a family, for us really moving forward in the heart, which ironically, when we look at the chart of the United States, it's very Cancer heavy. You wouldn't know it, you wouldn't feel it, but we are very Cancer dominant in the United States birth chart. So a lot of this is going to be affecting the United States specifically. I hope that there is a total resurgence of love and community and acceptance and coming together, because that is what will be super important for those next few months. If all of us work together collectively, we can make huge leaps throughout this window of time. And then on June 26th, we have Mercury entering Leo. So we'll get a little bit more fire energy. Mercury in Leo is great. Again, we're going to be wanting to have a good time. We're going to be wanting to follow our creative expressions. People are going to be more optimistic and lively. It really is a vibing month, right? And so we're also going to be having our masterclass this month. We decided to do it on what days? We are going to do the masterclass on June 18th to 19th, right before the summer solstice. And we're going to be talking a lot in that class, again, about the embodiment of the God self. So we're going to be talking about what co-creation really means, how to embody it, what Saturn and Aries really means for us which is going to be very important because remember, Saturn forces us into the embodiment of something. So we're going to talk a lot about that in that masterclass, as well as what we can anticipate with Uranus entering Gemini and how to get prepared for that. And so after we do the light body and we start to integrate into our nervous systems, we will then in the masterclass really focus on the embodiment of the God self, what that means, what that looks like. How do you co-create? How do you have a balance between self-will and divine will? And how we will prepare for Uranus's entrance into Gemini. So we have a lot of great things this month. I'll also probably be doing an astrology gathering this month, probably on the 7th or so. But yeah, it's going to be a really interesting month because, like I said, July is going to feel really wild with Uranus's entrance into Gemini. What's interesting about this is, the last time Pluto was in Aquarius was during the American Revolution, right? That was kind of when the Constitution was written, et cetera, et cetera. The French Revolution was going on. The last time we had Neptune and Aries was during the Civil War. Now, when we get to Uranus and Gemini, the last time we had Uranus and Gemini was also during the Civil War and also during the creation of the United States. So there's very interesting parallel timelines that are all coming together. So the United States just ended its Pluto return last year with Pluto in Capricorn, and now we're entering a Uranus return. So, and Gemini has a lot to do with communication, short-term travel, our thoughts, our ideas, and how we express those things, what our perspectives are, right? Gemini is a very versatile sign. And so there could be sudden catalysts with information coming out. There could be sudden changing of perspectives where all of a sudden everybody's kind of seeing that maybe I was wrong about this. Maybe I was right about this, but I'm changing my perspective on this. There's going to be a lot of change in that regard, a lot of change in where we get our information and how we get our information. So this could be big changes in media. This might be a big year for alternative media. We might have sudden inspiration with new types of writing, right? Because Gemini also rules writing. So we could have a boom in new books being written, in new content being shared. We could also have massive change in short-term travel and what that looks like and how that looks like. So again, we'll have these like 4 to 5 months, and then in the fall we will deal with the 29th degree retrogrades. But for now, that's what I feel about June. I feel it's about the vibes. It's about really remembering what the point is here. And the point is that we're all on the journey home to the same place. So if we can come together, if we can remember that we're all a family while also honoring our own paths and really being willing to double down on those paths and that purpose. I just think it can be a fantastic window where we literally get to see the glimpse of the new world coming in and that we're a part of it and that we're co-creating it. So exciting times. I love you all, and I will see you next month for July's update.